Yay!
It's worked.
Yes, it did.
So exciting.
Wonderful. So exciting. So exciting. I know. And it's just finding time for those as well, especially now with the a lockdown and
Mm,
potentially kids or just different schedules. So I'm always super grateful if people can make it because it is a bit of a weird time.
yeah.
But it also means that, people maybe are online and maybe want to join us and maybe want to say hello. So I can see some people joining, which is awesome. Hi,
Hello, hello.
Patrick. Hi, Alba Coaching.
Oh, that's Nick.
I think
Hey.
that's Nick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So yeah, thanks, Joseph, for joining. I'm going to ask you in a second to just say, I know probably some of the people will know Joe already, which is amazing. But I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Fine. Yeah.
And I just wanted to kick off quickly to say why I thought this topic could be something interesting. And we're going to dive into it in much more detail. But I do see personal growth as one of the kind of pillars of well-being and wellness. And it's something that I often talk to my clients with. It's almost like one of my four main pillars after eat and bloom and move and bloom and care or self-care and bloom. It's also personal growth. I feel like, our behaviors and habits and anything we do and things we learn about ourselves are just so important. And I couldn't think of a better person to speak to about it because you've done so much, and A, with well-being, and B, with personal growth, and kind of, A, from watching people, how they do it. And also I know you have vast, experience yourself because you are quite naturally curious person and obviously working in a
Very
field of
nosy.
very nosy and working in a field of coaching and, leadership and training, etc. So you've seen it all. And yeah, so I almost want to kick off now. But before we do that, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself to those that don't know you at all?
Sure, sure, sure. And thanks for having me, Ags. It's nice to see you and your beautiful smile today.
Ah!
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joseph. I'm a credentialed coach. I'm a facilitator, and I'm also the founder of a coach training business called Become. And perhaps a little bit about how I got here. I've always loved psychology. I've always loved supporting others. And I remember when I was at uni, the uni professors used to say, "Oh, you'd be really good at counseling. You'd be really good in therapy." And I mulled it over and I thought about it, but something kind of stopped me. So I waited for a little bit. I moved to London. I'm originally from Malta, so moved to London, and that's where I discovered coaching. Mainly through working in L&D. I used to be an L&D manager, and I got coached myself, and I thought, I can use a lot of my counseling skills and the things that I've learned
Mm-hmm.
to focus on personal growth, focus on people's development aspirations, their stories, what they want to do. And I found it really fascinating. And I've seen the positives. I've seen the positives in myself, but also that reward seeing other people develop and grow as well. So that's a little
Yeah.
bit about me.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like you developed so much. I mean, I known you for, lucky enough to know you for so many years. And I know you work with different people and different in organization and in kind of private personal capacity. Um, if you were to almost dig into the whole well-being and personal growth,
Yeah.
if someone just have almost like no idea or doesn't know where to start, what do you think? How would you define them?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, I guess, because they're very broad in terms of their definition. They can mean
Hmm.
different things to different people. So I'll talk about them from how I view them, if that's okay. And I think perhaps let's start with well-being first of all. And
Yeah.
for me, well-being is more than our health, our physical health. It's about our mental health. It's about our work-life balance, our well-being at work, and I mean, talking about well-being at work, for me, well-being at work really means happiness. If you're happy at work,
Yeah.
you've got, your well-being is much better. And uh, what makes us happy at work? Well, what makes a lot of people happy at work is having meaning. So having a meaning in what you do is also an element that shows, well-being as well. So when I think about well-being at work, I think about having meaning in what I do as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And And then perhaps personal growth. Now, I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with that word, personal growth, because I think, I know not for us, but for some people, they might
Yeah.
divide it between personal and professional growth.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
do you see what I mean? And what
Yeah.
personal is only purely about my own personal goals, and professional goals are about work. But actually, for me, they go hand in hand. It's holistic growth, really. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say, although we're using the word personal growth, I see that as personal, professional, cultural growth as human beings, as people.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we can grow that way, and the more that we can develop our awareness of ourselves and our abilities and how wonderful we are as human beings, the better we will be able to achieve what we want.
Yeah, yeah. And I like that you touched there on that kind of professional versus personal, because a lot of the times I try to find, like, different, there's personal development, there is,
Yeah.
kind of self-growth and all those terms, and there's something kind of icky about them.
Mm, I
And
know.
everyone will view them somehow differently. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you kind of pointed out that difference between, sometimes it can be quite disjointed for people. And there's that idea of maybe bringing it all together, because if you're developing in, I guess, or growing in one area of your life, or one part of your life somewhere there, whether it's work or outside, it probably will have impact on the other
Yeah.
areas, right?
Completely. And I
Yeah.
see quite a lot of my coaching. Sometimes, I'm doing one-to-one coaching with people, and you'll get some execs that will just say, I only want to talk about work. And
Yeah.
inevitably, after about 20
Yeah.
minutes in the first session, they're already talking about all sorts of other things.
My kid did this and then that did that. Yeah. Yeah.
Completely. So I don't think we can divide the two so easily, particularly nowadays, thinking about what's happening in this pandemic, and the fact that our working lives and our personal lives, to a degree, whether that's a positive or not, they have become a lot more enmeshed than they were a year ago. The fact that we are working from home a lot more, some
Yeah.
people are homeschooling their kids, that, there is a lot, much more of an overlap between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. So if someone, and we work obviously with a lot of people, and I always feel like if someone comes to a coaching session or looking for a coach, there is that curiosity in them, and they want to develop and they want to grow.
Yeah.
If and there is an element, they probably have a little bit of that self-awareness already. If someone doesn't, so if someone is a
Mm.
complete newbie, and they come to you as a coach, and you start to talk about, well, personal growth and well-being, if they just go completely blank and don't see any link between them.
Yeah. Yeah, sure,
Well,
sure.
because it is like a concept of even like putting this, you remember we talked about putting the title up, and we were like, oh, how can we phrase it so people really grasp what we're trying to say here? Because it can be like, what? Personal growth.
Mm. Mm.
So what is the link, you think, there? How would you explain it kind of easily?
Yeah. Oh, I would say that the link can be very, very personal and can be very unique. So what
Hmm.
might work for me, might not work for you. I would say the link is, first of all, is having the understanding of what contributes to our own definitions of these words. So I would say, as a first thing, if you're watching now, have it all think around, like I said earlier, what does well-being mean to me? What does personal growth mean to me? Because my understanding of them can be very different to what somebody else might understand. So that would
Hmm.
be the kind of the first step. Um, Another thing that I would say is important to bear in mind is that personal growth does not only depend on us, although it is about us, it's about, my own development. A lot
Yeah.
of the time, that growth happens as a result of an interaction either with other people or with something as well. Um, so for example, perhaps an important element of personal growth is about seeking feedback, asking the right questions from people,
Yeah.
finding your blind spots. So thinking about, for example, I'm thinking about the Johari window came to mind, the idea about,
Yeah.
bridging as much as possible, finding so much about those blind spots so that you minimize them. And I think the
Yeah.
more that we're able to do that, the better it is. But at the same time, I'd also be talking about feedback here, if I can mention, we'd have to be a bit careful with feedback, because not every single piece of feedback is something that we should. Sometimes I think of feedback as something that we absorb like a sponge. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Somebody tells us something and we mull it over, we think about it, and we forget that it can be just somebody's opinion and just somebody's subjective view of us.
Yeah. And so I have a question about Johari window, which just to
Okay.
explain to people. But before I do that, any example of the feedback, or you said kind of not to
Mm,
soak it up all, so kind of maybe
yeah.
use a bit of a, um,
Yeah, sure. Well, there's something that came to mind actually as I was talking about that. And it was when I was a training coordinator and I was
yeah,
about 21 or 22. I had just
mm,
moved to London,
yeah,
still a newbie. And I remember the training manager at the time, she kind of said, "Oh, can I have a word?" And she said, "Joe, your attention to detail is rubbish." I mean, maybe she didn't say it like that, but also she didn't really mince her
management
words.
skills 10.
So she just went, your attention to detail is rubbish. And I was so deflated by it. And I took that on and I really focused so much on, first of all, trying to change the attention to detail, to be better at it.
Yeah,
But as a result of that feedback, what happened, instead of me becoming overall better and performing better, my performance and it went down
yeah,
because I was putting quite a lot of energy into something that was soaking up all of my other areas, all of my strengths that I really had, and perhaps attention to detail. I mean, now I kind of disagree with her, but at that time, it just
hmm,
clouded my judgment a lot. So I think we just need to be really careful on that detail, on that feedback. Critique it,
yeah,
review it, ask somebody else, and think about the source. And by sources, is just one person who said that? Is there more than one person who thinks that?
mm,
And I think that is really important.
hmm. I like that. I like that because we often, especially I guess if someone is, quite critical towards themselves anyway,
Mm,
anything negative can just really spiral in our brain and become this huge where we
yeah,
just don't see anything positive.
yeah,
We just kind of pick on that one particular thing. And then you focus so much on improving those, I guess, a weakness,
yeah,
whatever we call it, that was
yeah,
pointed out, rather than
yeah.
actually saying, hey, well, I've done something awesome here too, right?
And from a work point of view, all I did was check and recheck my emails for spelling mistakes, which meant that I was just wasting so much time.
Oh gosh,
So yeah,
yeah,
it's not always the best thing to do when it comes to. So yeah, for personal growth and our own well-being, it's important to gain feedback, but it's important to be careful about it.
hmm,
And in a way, take a step back from it and just say, hey, is this true? Is it empirically true, or is it just somebody's opinion?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And Maud just said, yeah, like great point. And we often pick up others people's description of us and take it to
Mm,
heart and make it a story about what it is, which is not often what it really is.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
And the,
yeah.
and the irony of it is that when somebody says, "Wow, you've done a brilliant job. You're so good at this," we go, "No, come on,"
No,
and
stop
and
it.
that we
Oh,
just
it's
push
just
away.
it was just an accident. I don't even know what I did. Yeah, yeah.
We push that away, but anything constructive, we soak it in. So I think we just need to be careful.
Yeah, I like that on the feedback. And I like that point about the strengths and, if you flip it around, what is it
Mm.
really that you want to focus on? And then the Johari window you mentioned, and I know we have some coaches here, so they're probably quite familiar, but if someone is listening and they just like, what is that?
Yeah.
You're talking about kind of, things, the awareness and things we know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So definitely Google that. There's quite a lot of information about it. Basically, it looks at the way that how much we know about ourselves, and what we know about ourselves can be because of the information that we see, but also it can be in relation to what other people see of us. But the
Yeah.
the the, the point about that framework. Is that there are some things that we don't know about ourselves that other people also don't know about ourselves, and that's our blind
Mm-hmm.
spot in a way. And the only way how we can minimize that blind spot is by us doing some reflective practice to be able to
Mm-hmm.
understand ourselves better, but also to ask for other people's feedback and opinions. And that will minimize the gap because it shows us what they also see in us as well, what they see in ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and I really like that concept as well. Is a lot about that you don't know what you don't know. And but if
Exactly.
when you know, then you do know, and then
Yeah.
maybe you can improve, or maybe you can do it differently. And yeah, that's why I always, like, for me, it's, the whole coaching and that, those kind of topics, which I absolutely love. It's like, be curious and stay kind of curious and be inquisitive about what are the things that things that you do or things that you hear. Don't take everything for granted, kind of bit of
Mm.
geek analytical about it, which is
It's
cool.
okay to be nosy.
Yeah, and as you just said at the start, right? I'm nosy. um and so that was like the kind of work scenario, so gathering
Yeah.
that not many of us go to the office these days.
Mm.
Any example from like personal life, or someone that you either maybe the coaches that you, because you also train coaches, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Coaches that you see, or coaches, or anyone, kind of like a personal example of that, using self-growth or
Yeah.
personal growth
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
well-being.
and I mean, you mentioned coaching now, and like as you mentioned, I train coaches, so I train people to become coaches, and it's quite interesting the audience that you get as well. Some of those individuals are really focused on getting a coaching qualification because they want to open up a new business, show that they're professional, start making money from it, and do it the right way, which is fab. It's great. But you also have some people who will join a program like that or any other type of program for purely for their own development, purely because they
Yeah,
want to do something for themselves. And I think a lot of coaching skills are not just about work, they're about having better relationships with your family and friends,
mm,
understanding yourself that bit better. We spend so much time reflecting on who we are in a coaching program and how we want to be, how do we want to show up with our clients. Then
yeah,
inevitably you're going to be thinking about yourself. And so that's one example. But another example is tapping into your passions. What is it
yeah.
that you really enjoy, where you feel that you're completely lost in, that time passes by and you don't even notice? And I think
Mm,
that's a good indicator of something that is helping you grow as well. You might not know it at that time, but it is
yeah,
something that is pushing you, teaching you new skills.
yeah. And could it be, for example, so I guess from what we were talking about, it could be an example of something that you're doing at work that can help you, or something that you're doing for work, but it also can be example of something that you just do for personal joy,
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
just brings you, it's maybe
yeah.
your passion, or brings you something that you learn. And
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And I also teach. I think we might admit, I teach on a number of different qualifications, and it's quite funny because some of them have to produce a personal development plan. So, like a plan of what they
Oh
might want to
yeah,
achieve in 6 months' time. And the
yeah.
first version of that plan is always so rigid, and it's always so structured, and it's always so focused on, I'm going to work on this work project, and I'm going to work on that project.
Mm,
And when I speak to the actual students, I say, well, what is it that you really want to do? What is it that excites you? What is it that you want to develop yourself in? Scrap the project that you've got at work. What do you want to learn from it rather than doing the
mm,
project? The project is not your end result. Your end result is the behavior that you're going to change, the attitude that's going to be different, the knowledge that you're going to learn, which is
yeah.
different from doing something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And it can be so rigid. And I feel like the way you said it now, um, we often so focused, goal focused, right? And we just feel like we want to get there, we want to do it,
Hmm.
whether it's a project, but we don't often focus almost on the journey. I know it's such a
Yeah,
cliche, but like, how am I going to get there? What do I want to
yeah,
feel like at the end?
yeah.
What do I want to do if I feel crappy about it? Or what if I, don't
Yeah,
like the end result, or whatever that is.
exactly,
So
exactly.
just kind of reflect on that. And I think that's maybe part of the reason why some people maybe feel quite negative around the whole world of, the phrase of personal growth or self-growth,
Yeah, yeah,
because it can
possibly.
be like, oh, goal focused, and I need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
set a goal, I need to do so and
yeah.
so, where reality can be like, it can be like, I actually do, it's not, well, I do see it as a personal growth in a way. Like, I've been such an amateur knitter for
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 years. I have this friend in London, and she owns a yarn shop. She's amazing. And, she kind of hooked me with that. And every now and then, like, literally takes me a year to make a scarf. But there is something about it, and like part of me really wants to, sit down and do it and learn and figure it out, and it is
Yeah.
kind of creative and it takes me away from other stuff. And I do see it as like, something that I'm developing. There is something I'm learning from it, and it's just for me. So it doesn't
And can
have
you
to
see
be
a
like this big thing.
yeah, and can you see a link between that and your well-being,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And just even the fact that there is something like that I can tap into, and it's really
Mm,
mine. Like I literally put it
mm.
high so my children not get into it because that would be a disaster. Um, and yeah, it is something like like a little moment. And I don't do it as often as I want to, but when I do, it's like, this
Mm,
is good,
nice.
So yeah. And also like you mentioned the diploma, and obviously I studied with you, and that was, beautiful 6 months of my life last year,
Yeah.
which was also so needed because the last year was what it was, right? And I think, looking back, and we've done a lot of reflections obviously on the course as well, but looking back, I also had like similar maybe approach at the very start. I knew I wanted it to improve my coaching skills, to kind of, put back in my business and to use it working with my clients. But then after a while, or pretty quickly, I, almost caught myself doing things in a daily
Mm,
life, like using those skills and practicing
hmm.
and be like, oh, so how would I react here? What does need to be different for me to do
Yeah.
this? Or, you just kind of start to ask a bit of different questions, whether it's in here or externally to people. So, even though I kind of used it for, obvious reasons, for work and career, I think there was that huge element that I kind of knew may happen, but I guess
Hmm.
surprised me how big impact it
Yeah.
had just on
Yeah.
me personally and how I use it. And that was pretty great.
Oh, that's some nice
Yeah.
feedback. Thank you as well.
Yeah. And also the whole reflections, I feel like the whole like being self-aware of all this stuff. And as you said at the start, knowing really what does it mean for me, personal growth, what does it mean for me in terms of well-being, etc. I think just even knowing, doing more of those reflections, anyone can
Mm,
benefit and probably will get you to some answers, or like the feelings that we said, etc., that you want to tap into.
great, great. And it
Yeah.
does. A lot of people get quite a lot of benefits, not just about the studying element, but also learning a lot more about yourself and being able to apply those things to your own personal life and not just with clients.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty about coaching, and that's just what we do. It's like you can, it's not only for like it's almost hard to put a pause on, like, a break between personal and
Mm.
work life, because you do kind of melt with it, you live it, you kind of become, oh, there you go, you become this. I'm trying to look also if someone, I think Steve said, love some curiosity in life. Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
nice concept. Hi everyone. I think we have quite a nice few people joined.
Mm.
Um, so I guess to kind of start to take it home a little bit,
Yeah.
if you were kind of three, or how many you feel, but let's say two or three things that you can see that people can, um, you know, someone that wants to tap into, they were like, oh, I'm pumped with this conversation. Like, I really want to explore that.
Yeah.
Where do you think they can start?
Um, well, in link with our conversation today, I would say the first thing to start off is your strengths. And do you know what your strengths are? Have you got an understanding of your strengths? I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a good starting point.
Yeah.
Secondly, is not to compare yourself to other people. I think sometimes we can get into, when it comes to either setting our goals or thinking of what we want to do, we get into this mind frame when we compare what other people have done as well, or what other people are doing.
Yeah.
So I would say, be careful not to compare yourself, because that can actually stop you from developing. Um, and also, don't be afraid of small mistakes and failures. I think
Mm,
we all, similar to what we were talking about earlier, same with constructive feedback. I think if we make a mistake, we don't forgive ourselves as easily as we would forgive
yeah.
somebody else who did that same mistake. So, um, I think sometimes we tend to attribute those small failures immediately to ourselves, but we again need to be a bit critical, and we need to think about it because we all make mistakes, and sometimes we are not as kind to ourselves, quite cliche, but it's true, as we are to other people.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
I love that.
I'd say those would be kind of my top three kind of tips.
Mm-hmm.
Don't first of all focus on your strengths. Secondly, don't compare yourself. And what was the last one?
And
Uh,
and be kinder, right?
and be kinder to yourself. Yeah, and
Yeah.
when you make mistakes.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, all of them I like. Yeah, the comparison is huge, isn't it? Because
Mm,
yeah, often we like, oh, this person's doing this, I should be doing the same, or like, just looking at other people. I think it's a lot of good in it. Obviously, we learn,
yeah.
we get feedback, and we learn by seeing, observing, but it also can be unhealthy. So just take
Mm,
that, with a pinch of salt. And then that kindness, yeah, it's something about those mistakes. Whenever you make them, we just so harsh on ourselves. And yeah,
too
yeah,
harsh.
I like that. Okay, so tap into your strengths. Uh, do not compare and be kinder
Yeah,
when you make a mistake,
when you make a mistake.
because it's totally human.
Yeah, yeah, completely.
I like that. Okay. Awesome. Um, Anything else do you think that comes to mind? I have two more questions I'll ask you. I think it will be
Okay.
worth it for people to know a little bit more about your program or about your course.
Mm,
And I have a question that I ask everyone about healthy habits. But anything
okay.
else that comes to mind that you feel like, oh, I actually want to mention this or that, or
No, the only thing I say that, yeah, there's a bit towards the end, we were talking about, those small failures. Be careful of those because they can stop you, from
mm-hmm.
actually continuing to develop yourself. So, no, so just being aware of them as well, that they're natural and it happens, and it's okay to, to feel kind of mixed emotions about something. Sometimes we are, we might label something as being bad, it gave us nothing, but at the same time a lot of the activities, the things that we
Yeah,
do, give us quite a lot. So, thinking, for
yeah,
example, something that you might not want to do. You might not want to go out and go on Instagram Live and talk to everyone about something because you feel nervous. But you can say to yourself, yes, I am going to feel nervous, but at the same time, I'm also going to feel really excited and I'm going to learn something new. I will feel
mm,
nervous, but it's okay.
yeah, yeah. So almost don't let it stop you, right? Almost use
Yeah,
it. How can you use it to and still go ahead? It's
yeah.
that cheeky
And
phrase. What is it? The feel the fear and do it
fear and do
anyway.
it
But
anyways.
but
Yeah, that's really nice.
it is a lot of truth in this, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
completely. And
yeah.
it's accepting it, isn't it? It's not trying to push that nervousness away. You're not saying, no, I'm not going to be nervous, but you're saying, yes, I'm going to be nervous, and that's perfectly fine.
And how can I still do it? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I like that.
yeah.
I like that. Um, and I feel so kind of to wrap it up, I feel like the personal growth. So if I
Mm,
think of my example, or like something from my life, or talking to other people, or talking to coaches, it's almost like if you tap into and feel like you're growing in certain areas, I think that can really affect your mood, your stamina. It can even, I have examples of, seeing people affected by, how they eat and what they eat,
mm,
or how they maybe perform at work, or how they even are with their kids, whether, if you're a mom or a dad. I think those we kind of or underestimate those things,
yeah,
how
yeah,
everything is really connected in that
yeah,
holistic way, as you mentioned.
yeah.
So I think it's quite a fun way to
Mm,
almost use. It's almost like a shame not to use it to enhance that well-being, isn't it? Yeah, I really like
completely,
that part.
completely.
Yeah, I really like it. So yeah, tell me what do you have? I like to ask that question everyone, and I say everyone as I've literally had like, maybe five people on my live so far.
Still,
But I thought it's a cool one.
yeah.
I'm always curious about people healthy habits or something that they've
Mm,
developed and maybe continue doing. So do you have
mhm.
something that you can't live without
I
at
do.
the moment?
I
Ooh,
do. I do. I do. I'm not sure. Well, we'll see. You can tell me whether it's a healthy
okay.
habit. But I swapped my to-do list and I was saying to do. This is what I want to do with a to-be list. How I want to be. instead of what I want to do.
Oh.
And it's really helped me. So let's say I'm going into a conversation, maybe a difficult conversation with somebody, and typically I would have gone in and said, what do I want to do? You know, what would I get out of this conversation? One, two,
Mm.
three, four. And now I think, how do I want to be in that conversation rather than what do I want to do? So in that case, and this is a real example, I thought I want to be courageous. I want to be honest. I want to show up. You know, I want to show this person that I actually care for them. I focus a lot on the being side rather than the doing side, and I find that the doing then really follows. In a way, it's the same idea as finding your why, isn't it? Finding the why
Mm.
you're doing something.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So if you were to say, joining our conversation today, instead of
Mm.
saying, oh, how am I, what do I want to get out of it, or what should I do? What should I say? You'd be like, what can
How
I
do I want to
feel?
be?
How
Yeah.
do I want to be with it?
So in this
Yeah.
case, I was thinking about our Instagram live, and I was thinking, how do I want to be on it rather than what do I want to do? What do I want to say? I want to be relaxed, I thought. I want to
Hmm.
be, you know, genuine with people. I want to have a good time with
Yeah.
Ags. So
Yeah.
I focus a lot more on that, and that I find is really motivating for me.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I really like that. How do I want to be instead of just the whole doing, doing, doing?
Mm.
Mm, I love it.
Try
I'm
it.
gonna write it down. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a
Absolutely.
simple
And
one.
it's and you know what? How do I want to be? I'm gonna put it as a like a wallpaper thing. And I think you know what, like saying about that whole maybe feeling, it is
Yeah.
you know, kind of the end, the reward, or the whatever we call it, different phrases for it, in the end habit kind of loop. It is
Mm.
like, you know, what is the feeling that I'm really aiming for?
Mm.
So it is a nice way to say, you know, how do I want to feel?
Mm.
How do I want to
Yeah.
be?
Yeah.
I
How
like
do I want to
that.
feel? How do I want to be? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh gosh, thank you. That was so insightful and
Oh,
almost
thank
like
you.
seeing myself like thinking now. But before you go, tell us where people can find you or how can they support
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
also, if you want to say a few words about your course, because you're
Yeah, sure.
starting a new cohort of people. So you're training obviously amazing coaches going forward. Tell us how and what and when and all that.
Sounds good. So you can find me on Become Coaching on Instagram and on Twitter, LinkedIn, and all of those. I'm
Hmm.
logged on my personal account, JF Grech, as well, so it's perfectly fine to find me on there. Also, and yeah, definitely do connect. I enjoy these type of conversations, so do say hi. And a little bit about the course, it's an ICF accredited diploma, so you become an ICF accredited coach at the end of it, which is fab. So you get all of your credentials behind your name. There's a few things that we do. There's a number of live classes. So everything that we do is mainly face to face, but over Zoom, you know, but it is
Mm.
live. So
Yeah.
everything that we do is live. There's 18 live classes that we do together. You get 10 mentoring sessions as well with somebody like myself or one of my colleagues, for example, to help you set up your business or whatever it is, to develop your coaching skills even further. We also listen into your coaching conversations. So you'll
Mm.
have an assessor listening into your coaching conversation, and it's amazing the nuances that they'll be able to pick up in terms of your own coaching style, your approach. You get
Yeah.
feedback for it, and it is a lot of fun. I think it's just,
Yeah.
I remember when I did my coach training, I grew so much as a person. And I enjoyed it. I keep in touch with the people who I trained with. We are so close. Um, and it has changed my life for me because it's, you know, allowed me to set up my business and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
if you wanted to find out a bit more, I'm sure Ags, you can send out the link to my site and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
And yeah, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely, you know, echo what you said about the course, because it is, you know, just that connection with people and the reflection and having that live feedback. I think that was, you know, quite special. And you do really, like when you re-listen to something or when you like analyze it a little bit, it does yeah, it just opens up everything even more. And that's how you learn.
Mm,
That's, you know, for me it really worked because that's how I kind of get the feedback and learn and can really get in there. So yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I think I almost want to ask about ICF, but that's another whole conversation.
I think we'll be here for
So
another
let's
half
stop
an
there.
hour.
I know the coaches, exactly. Coaches all know what it is and all that. I'm going to post a link to Joseph's website or Joseph Instagram, and then there's a link to the website. That's the probably easiest. And then, yeah, again,
Sounds
thank you so
good.
much for joining. That was really
No, thank
fun.
you. Thank
Glad
you.
we
Thank
did
you for
it.
having me.
And
Woo,
yeah,
woo.
perfect session for